Welcome to Sinclair Tractor's Integrated Solutions training videos. In this video I am going to show you how to set up equipment offsets in the Greenstar 2 or Greenstar 3 display. In order to get there from the beginning, go to your main menu down in the bottom right corner, go to GS3 or GS2 depending on the display, and then on the right go to the Equipment or H button. This will take you to the equipment setup page. First, we want to set up the machine, which is the tab at the top left hand corner. You need to select your machine type. If you need to change that, hit right on that button and you will have the choices available to you. In this case, we do want the tractor. The machine model is optional. If you want to put that in there, you can, but we do have to have a machine name. So we go to name, pick the machine that we want. On the latest modern machines, it's normally going to be the serial number of that machine. So go ahead and select that. It'll put that in there, and then it will pre-populate the offsets in the center of the screen. Now you do want to check your connection type. Be sure this is appropriate for the implement that you are pulling. If it's a tillage tool, most likely you are pulling from the drawbar. But if you are pulling a planter, there's a good chance that you got that mounted to the 2-point hitch for the 3-point. And so you'd want to change that to rear pivot 2-point, if that was the case. And it will actually change the pictogram on the offsets page here to show that. When you measure those offsets and put them in, you go to your change offsets page. It'll show in the pictogram what each of the A, B, C, and D measurements are. In almost all cases, A should be 0. That's the distance the receiver is from the center line of the machine. B is your distance from your non-steering axle to the receiver. If that's a fixed frame tractor, that's going to be to the rear axle. If it's a tracked tractor, it is into the center of the tracks. And then if it's an articulated four-wheel drive, it's going to be to the front axle that you measure. On the receiver itself, measure to the center of the receiver physically, if it's front to back or side to side. If you are measuring your height, which is D, you want to measure from the ground to the intersection of the yellow and green plastic on the receiver. Do pay attention to whether these offsets are listed in inches or in feet, because they do vary from screen to screen. And the inches are in tenths. So if you have distance that's in feet, you're going to put feet and tenths of feet, not feet and inches. So you're going to have to interpolate just a little bit. Once you have the offsets in there, hit accept. And then finally, you do want to check your recording source. The finger is manual recording, where you'll have to initiate it by hand. But if you're connected to CAN bus of the tractor, this list will actually have other choices in it, such as SCV 1, 2, 3, etc. Recording from the 3-point hitch, PTO activation, etc. So select the one that you want. If you have just a whisker switch for a height switch, like on a tillage tool, then you may select normally open or normally closed on these whisker switch icons. Then to set up your implement, it's the same thing. We just go to the Implement tab for Implement 1 at the top. Again, select your implement type. The model is optional, but you do need the name for sure. The offsets are similar. The only caveat here is if it's a planter or a sprayer, something like that, distance B and distance A put together are what the critical distance is. So you don't have to measure separate measurements for those. You can actually enter your distance from your connection point or your drawbar point or the pivot on a 2-point of the planter back to your seed tube drop point. and just put that single distance in for either A or B. But you do want to have your distance D, which is from your connection point back to where the transport wheels are when it's in the raised position. And then finally, if you are pulling another implement behind the first one, you do need to have this distance E. Otherwise, that will stay at 0. Hit enter to accept those offsets. And then finally, we need to set up the widths of the implement. So hit the change widths button. You can select whether it's in feet or rows. So in this instance, it is showing it in rows. So we have the number of rows and then the row width, which would be row spacing. In most instances, the implement width and the track spacing should be the same. So make sure that they match up. If you come in here and one of these distance boxes is grayed out, that is because it is pulling that distance from the CAN bus in either the combine or the controller for the planter. So you may have to set those offsets up in either the planter setup screen or in the combine's setup screen, and that'll be covered in another video. Once you have these set the way that you want on the screen, go to next page. It'll have you set up the drive sections if it is an exact emerge planter. This is specific to that planter only, and hit accept. And then it will lock in those settings. And that is how you set up your equipment offsets.